Today I am going to teach you about one of the important tests in coagulation assessment called rotational thromboelastometry. In 1948, while Dr. Hartest walking on the corridor, he found to have pressed blood sample spillage in the corridor. Pressed blood sample spillage in the corridor. What he does is, he put a small pin into that blood sample. He put a small pin into that blood sample and rotate it. What he felt is the resistance to rotation gradually increased. Initially there was no resistance to rotation. No resistance to rotation. With the time the resistance gradually increased. And that resistance went to maximum level and then the resistance gradually reduced. Then he said our blood clot has some kind of viscous property and some kind of elastic property. He said our blood has some kind of vesicoelastic properties. Our blood clot has some kind of vesicoelastic properties. Then what he does is, he took this blood sample to out and kept on the microscope and analyzed. What he found was is, not only coagulation factors, red blood cell and platelet also involved in coagulation process. Coagulation factors, red blood cells and platelet also involved in the coagulation. But when we doing the coagulation assessment, what we are going to assess is only the plasma component. If you request activated partial thromboplastin time or PT or INR, they are going to do those tests only on the plasma component. But our clot containing red blood cell and platelet as well. That means our coagulation process involving the red blood cell and platelet both, and coagulation factor as well, not only coagulation factor. Because of that, he said, if you want to assess the coagulation, better to assess with the whole blood, not with the plasma component. You all know, with the plasma component, they investigate our coagulation pathway. It says our coagulation pathway has two major components, intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway. Intrinsic pathway is started with factor 12. Factor 12 activated by who going to activate factor 12? Low molecular weight killicarine and kilinogen. Phospholipid can activate. Low molecular weight killicarine, kilinogen activate phospholipid. Phospholipid can activate factor 13. 12 can activate factor 11. 11 can activate factor 9. 9 can activate factor 10. 10 can activate prothrombin to thrombin. Thrombin can activate your fibrinogen to fibrin. Your fibrin monomer can cross-link by action of factor 13. To make stable plug, you need to have fibrin monomer with the cross-link of by the help of factor 13. In addition to that, platelet as well. Fibrin plus platelet plus factor 13 here involved in making the stable plug, stable platelet plug. In order to prevent the bleeding, you need to develop stable clot that should include fibrin, platelet and factor 13. This is intrinsic pathway. Your coagulation process can also stimulate by using your extrinsic pathway. Here you have factor 7. Factor 7 can be activated by tissue factor. Tissue factor, also called thromboplastin. Thromboplastin can stimulate inactivated factor 7 to activated factor 7. Activated factor 7 can stimulate factor 10. conversion of active factor 10, then activated factor 10 can continue your common pathway. This pathway is called common pathway. This pathway can stimulate by extrinsically add tissue factors. Because of that, we are going to call it as extrinsic pathway. The low molecular weight glycerin and kininogen and phospholipid is there in your blood. No need to add something from outside. Because of that, we are going to call it as intrinsic pathway. It is intrinsically present in the blood. Intrinsic pathway. So, what Dr. Hart has said is, for the coagulation process, you need to have coagulation factor, red blood cells and platelet in order to produce proper clot. But there are two pathways. One is called intrinsic pathway, one is called extrinsic pathway, united together and produce common pathway. Then what Dr. Hart did is, he took a blood sample from a patient. Then that he added little bit of citrate to that blood sample. Why he add citrate to that blood sample? Citrate is going to chelate your calcium, and for the coagulation process, you should have some amount of calcium in your blood. Now you are deficiency in calcium because of adding citrate. Citrate and calcium going to be neutralized. So your blood is lacking of calcium right now, so coagulation process will not occur. He took blood sample into test tube, and here your blood, and add little bit of citrate. Then what he does is, he take that blood sample into lab, and this is test tube, and here some kind of optical mirror is situated. Here is a light emitting diode, here photodetector. This light go and flash onto the mirror and reflect back and detect by detector. Here detector, here your diode. Here you have blood, here you have blood. What he does is, he put a small pin into that blood sample. And then he allowed the blood sample to rotate in clock and anti-clockwise manner in a small degree. The amount of degree is 4.75. 4.75 degree rotation, like this. For a while, think I am the blood sample containing test tube. He put pin into my blood sample over my stomach. Then he asked me to rotate, and here is the light emitting diode. The light come from here and flash on my chest and reflect back. That reflect part is identified by photodetector here. Now what he does is, he asked me to rotate clockwise and anti-clockwise manner slowly. How much? 4.75 degree, like this. My pin is here, there. I am now rotating. With the rotation, what happened is, the light come into this mirror, going to flash into other way around rather than detector. So detector may not be identified light time to time. With the clot formation, what happened to me is, the rotation ability gradually reduced, because of this vesicoelastic property, or during the clot formation, it added little bit of resistance to my pin. Because of this pin, the rotation ability of my test tube is gradually reduced. To stimulate the coagulation, now we stop the coagulation by adding citrate. If I am going to do a rotation with this blood sample, it will rotate in the whole day, nothing will happen, because blood sample is now not going to coagulate because I add citrate. Now what I am going to do is, I am going to stimulate the coagulation process by adding some kind of external substance. I am going to put some small amount of tissue juice into this sample. Small amount of tissue factor into this sample, also called thromboplastin. Then what happened is, now my coagulation going to start. For the start of the coagulation, it takes little bit of time. During that time, my rotation is, nothing will happen to my rotation. I rotate in usual manner. Once I start the coagulation, the resistance of this spring gradually increase. Because of that, the rotation movement gradually reduce. Initially I rotate like this. Now my rotation is gradually reduced. When clot is formed gradually, the resistance will be more. The movement gradually reduced. Then it come into maximum level. After that, what he noted is gradually increase my rotation and it nearly come back into normal level. He draw a graph for resistance which appear in the pin during the rotatory movement. We will see what he saw is. This is the beginning line. Here you are. From here to here there is no resistance. From here to here there is no resistance. Then your clot start to begin. Then your clot start to build up. With that, it adds a little bit of resistance to rotatory movement. So it increases the resistance gradually. Then it comes into maximum level. Once it comes into maximum level, it gradually goes down. Gradually goes down. With the time, it come near to zero line, zero resistance line. With the time, it came to near to zero line. This graft is going to call it as Rotem graft. Rotem graft. Here we add substance extrinsically into this tube. Because of that, we are going to call it as extrinsic pathway of rotational thromboelastometry. I know it is little bit difficult to take extrinsic pathway of rotational thromboelastometry. Because of that, I take X part from extrinsic pathway and TEM from here. So we are going to call it as XTEM because I add tissue factor extrinsically and I am going to stimulate my coagulation pathway. That means extrinsic pathway including common pathway as well. So what I show is it takes a little bit of time to develop the clot. Once clot developed, it gradually increase up to maximum level, then gradually reduce into near normal level. I am going to enlarge it here for you. Here is the beginning line. Then here this much of time taken to start of the coagulation. Then gradually increase it to maximum level. Gradually increase it to maximum level. Then that maximum level then is gradually diminish. Then it gradually diminish. With the time it came near normal. With the time it came into near normal. From the beginning, from the time of adding tissue factor into sample up to beginning of the clot development, actually saying 2 mm size clot. 2 mm size of clot. Now, up to this level, we are going to call this as clotting time. Clotting time. From the beginning of, from the point of adding tissue thromboplastin or tissue factor to the beginning of clot development, going to call as clotting factor. If you remember the previous pathway, that means once you stimulate the factor 7, it is stimulate the factor 10, it is stimulate the prothrombin, it stimulate the beginning of the fibrin formation. That means from here to here, in your extrinsic pathway or XTEM, determine how much of coagulation factor you have. From here to here, determine how much of coagulation factors, that means factor 7, factor 10, prothrombin and fibrinogen. How much of those substances present in your blood? That means up to fibrinogen you can check in the clotting time. What they found to have, if clotting time more than 80 to 85 seconds, that means your coagulation, starting of the coagulation is delayed. If it is more than 85 seconds, the starting of the coagulation is delayed. That means your patient needs some kind of clotting factors. The clotting factors mainly containing in your fresh frozen plasma. You have to give, if your patient having high clotting time more than 85 seconds, you have to give fresh frozen plasma. Plasma. If you think your patient is volume overloaded, you can't give larger amount of fluid. In that case, you can give prothrombin concentrated complex. PCC you can give, but beware, some patients found to have increased mortality with prothrombin concentration complex, like in sepsis patient or DIC patient, you can't give prothrombin complexes. So if you want to have high clotting time in the extreme, you have to give FFPO prothrombin complex. After that, from 2 mm size to 20 mm size, from 2 mm size to 20 mm size, we are going to call it as clot forming type. Clot forming type from 2 mm to 20 mm size. Here 20 mm. Here 2 mm. If you remember the extrinsic and intrinsic pathway, here you have extrinsic pathway, here you have intrinsic pathway, here you have common pathway, here you have fibrin, monomer, platelet plus cross-link formation with factor 13. Cross-link formation with fibrin stabilization factor, also called factor 13. With that, your clot will be stable. So, from here to here, the clot forming time. That means, for the clot forming time, you should have adequate amount of fibrinogen and platelet. To produce the clot, you should have adequate amount of fibrinogen and clot. If you found a patient with high clot forming time, your patient may lack either platelet, either fibrin, your patient may lack. After that, what I am going to check is, after about 10 minutes of starting of the coagulation, that means from beginning of the clot to 10 minutes, I am going to measure the length. That means from beginning of the clot, from here to here, that means from 2 mm to 10 minutes. From 2 mm to 10 minutes, I am going to check the height should be more than 45 mm. After about 10 minutes of starting of your coagulation, your clot should show, your graph should be more than 45 mm size. If your patient having lesser than that, that means less than 45 mm size after 10 minutes, that value, for that value we are going to call it as A10. If you found your patient with A10 less than 45, if it is more than 45, doesn't matter. That means your patient having good coagulation capacity, or sometimes it may be due to hypercoagulation. In that case also you have to do something. If your patient having more than 45 mm size of A10, doesn't matter, no risk of risk of having bleeding. But if your patient having less than 45 A10, it may be due to lacking of platelet or fibrin. Now your FFP and the clotting factor function is already done up to here. Now A10 decide how much of platelet and how much of fibrin you have. It may due to platelet or fibrinogen amount. If you found to have patient with A10 more than 45, you are running with your coagulation test, you found to have high clotting time and all other are normal in extreme, you no need to do anything. But if you found to have normal clotting time with high A10 or prolonged clotting time with high A10, if you already know now, if your patient having high clotting time, you have to give FFN or prothrombin concentrate complex. If your patient found to have high A10, it may be due to problem in the platelet and problem in the fibrinogen. In that case, we have to run other test. What I am going to do is for my patient, I am going to neutralize the platelet function. Then I am going to assess the extrinsic pathway stimulated fibrin action. For that, I am going to put fibrinogen assessment ROTAM. Previously I did extrinsic pathway assessment ROTAM. For that I am called as extend because that previous name is too long to tell. Now fibrinogen assessment ROTAM, it is again difficult to tell, because of that I am going to tell it as FIBTEM. Fibrinogen assessment. Now I am going to assess whether my patient having more than 45, less than 45 A10, whether it is due to platelet or fibrinogen. For that I am going to do is I am going to neutralize the platelet action and I am going to do a FIBTEM on my sample. So my sample, again I am running same. I am going to draw same graph. Then what I found is A10 in 15. After about 10 minutes of starting the coagulation, the maximum length from here to here I am going to measure. From here to here, maximum length after starting the 15 I am going to measure. If I found to have more than 10 millimeter of A10, even after neutralizing the platelet, that means I have enough fibrinogen. I will repeat it again for you. After running the FIBTEM, if I found the A10 more than 10, that means I have enough fibrinogen. That means with the fibrinogen only I create enough clot. But with the fibrinogen and platelet together, I create lesser strength clot. That means I have enough fibrinogen. I am lacking of having platelet. So need to give platelet if A10 more than 10. Need to give platelet. If A10 less than 10, that means with the fibrinogen only, I still having lack of generating enough strength clot. That means I am deficient in fibrinogen as well. So because of that, I have to give fibrinogen here. For the fibrinogen, I have to give cryoprecipitate. So if you found patient with A10 more than 45, what you have to do is you have to run FIBTEM. Then look whether A10 is more than 10 millimeter or not. A10 Here less than 10 millimeter. If it is more than 10 millimeter, you have to give platelet. If it is less than 10 millimeter, you have to give cryoprecipitate. Okay. Then what I am going to check is, I check clotting time, clot forming time, and A10 mean after 10 minutes of starting of the coagulation process, the maximum length. Then what I am going to check is, after about 1 hour, the clot lysis. Also called maximum lysis in 30 minutes. Maximum lysis in 30 minutes. Here you have maximum clot size. This is amount of lysis here from here to here. This is amount of lysis from here to here. If your patient having more than 15% of clot lysis after 1 hour, your clot lysis process is rapidly happening. I will repeat it again. If your patient having maximum clot lysis after about 60 minutes, here should be 60. Maximum clot lysis after about 60 minutes is more than 15%. That means clot lysis process is accelerated. That means highly fibrinolysis is going to happen. That means your plate, even though you produce platelet fibrin plug, that is not that much stable, is rapidly break down by tissue plasminogen activator. Tissue plasminogen activate your plasmin. Plasmin can break down your clot into fibrinogen degradation product, also called D-dimer. Your clot is not that much stable. It may be due to two reasons. One thing is your tissue plasminogen activator activity is too much high, or you are one of the patient having less factor 13. That means even though you produce platelet and fibrin plug, that is not that much stable, unstable platelet plug. Hyperfibrinolysis or unstable platelet plug. I will repeat it again. Maximum clot lysis in 60 minutes is more than 15%. It may be due to hyperfibrinolysis or here your increased tissue plasminogen activity or clot lysis activity is increased. If so, I have to identify whether to give factor 13 or whether to stop fibrinolysis. For that, I am going to do APTEM. APTEM means, I will erase it from here to here. Aprotenin induced rotational thromboelastometry, also called APTEM. What I am going to do is, I am going to neutralize this effect. Tissue plasminogen activity I am going to neutralize by adding some kind of substance. By adding some kind of substance, if I am going to neutralize this activity, that means the tissue plasminogen activity is not there right now because of the aprotenin. If so, if your patient having normal coagulation lysis process after adding aprotenin, that means you are unstable clot due to high proteolysis activity. I will repeat it again. What I am going to do is, I am going to add aprotenin into my sample, and I am going to run another kind of ROTEM. Once I add aprotenin, it inhibits clot lysis process. Once I stop clot lysis process, my clot maximum lysis in 60 minutes if less than 15%. That means previously more than 15% is due to hyperfibrinolysis. Now I stop hyperfibrinolysis. Now proteolysis is less than 15%. That means I need to give some kind of proteolysis stopping substance. Proteolysis stopping substance. What I am going to give is tranexamic acid. Once I did the attempt, if I found to have maximum lysis less than 15%, I should give tranexamic acid. Even after giving aproteinin, still I have more than 15% maximum proteolysis. It may be due to deficiency of factor 13. In that case, you have to give factor 13. Now you know when to give FFPO prothrombin concentrated, when to give platelet, when to give piperine, when to give tranexamic acid, when to give factor 13. Now I am going to tell you about heparin effect. Heparin usually act on factor 11, factor 9, mainly related to intrinsic pathway. Here you are intrinsic pathway, you are extrinsic pathway, factor 12, factor 10, factor 11, factor 9, here you are factor 10, here you are factor 7, factor 10, prothrombin and fibrine. Your heparin mainly blocked your factor 9 and 11. Heparin mainly blocked. If you have a patient with heparinase, if you have a heparinase patient, the coagulation intrinsic pathway can be prolonged. Intrinsic pathway coagulation action will be prolonged. In that case, your patient can have bleeding. If so, you have to give some kind of substance to neutralize the heparin. Before that, you should identify whether your patient having heparin induced bleeding or not. For that, I am going to run another kind of rotem called heparin neutralization rotem. Heparin neutralization rotem or HEPTEM. Heparin neutralization rotem. What I am going to do is, I am going to run this coagulation pathway, intrinsic pathway or extrinsic pathway. I found to have high clotting time. It may be due to deficiency of intrinsic pathway activity. I am going to do INTEM here. INTEM. Intrinsic pathway activation. Up to now I did this only extrinsic pathway activation. From that I identify whether my patient having heparin FFP deficiency or protein factor deficiency, platelet deficiency, fibrinogen deficiency, or tranexamic acid, or factor 18 deficiency. Not 18, factor 13. Very good. So now I am going to do INTEM. That means I am going to stimulate intrinsic pathway. Previously what I did is I took sample into the test tube and I add tissue factor from outside. Now what I am going to do is I am going to take citrated blood sample into test tube and I am going to add intrinsic pathway activators to that sample. I already told intrinsic pathway can activate by low molecular weight, kilinogen and kilicarin and phospholipid as well. Now I am going to add phospholipid into my sample. Here my sample is there. I am going to add citrated sample. Here again your pen is there. Here your light emitting diode. Here detector is there. This is the one rotating like this. Good. Here your blood. I am going to add phospholipid into my sample. From adding phospholipid, I am going to stimulate intrinsic pathway for my patient. Once I activate the intrinsic pathway, I can see the intent in my ROTEM report. Intent in my ROTEM report. It will be like this. If I found a patient with high clotting time, that means prolonged clotting time, take long time here, clotting time from here to here, here clotting time from here to here. Prolonged clotting time related to intrinsic pathway may be due to heparin effect. May be due to heparin effect. If I found prolonged clotting time in the intrinsic pathway or INTEM, what I am going to do is I am going to add heparin neutralizing substance or heparinase into sample, and I am going to redo intrinsic pathway for my patient. That is called HEPTIM. What I am going to do is I am going to add heparinase to neutralize the heparin effect, and I am going to run INTEM again on my patient. Because of I am adding heparin into sample, that one is going to call it as HEPTIM. After I adding heparin, for a while think clotting time came to normal. Clotting time here from here to here, now clotting time no become normal. So because of that, I am telling now my patient bleeding is due to heparin. I have to neutralize the effect of heparin. You have to give some kind of substance in order to neutralize the heparin effect. You know what is the substance. Very good. So up to now, I will recap rapidly. If you found a patient with bleeding, you have to do ROTEM on your patient. ROTEM shows vesicoelastic properties of the blood sample, and not only that, it is one of the point of care testing. While running the testing, you can identify whether your patient lacking certain substance. If so, you have to give that substance. If you found have a patient with prolonged clotting time in XTEM, first of all you have to check extensive pathway, XTEM. If your patient is having prolonged clotting time more than 85 seconds, you have to give either FFP or prothrombin concentration complex. Or if you found your patient having high A10, that means after 10 minutes the strength of the clot is, if less than 45 millimeter, you have to run 15. You have to run 15. In the 15, if you found A10 more than 10, in 15 patient do not have fibrinogen deficiency, you have to give platelet. If your patient having A10 less than 10, A10 less than 10, that means with the only presence of fibrinogen not enough to produce 10 millimeter strength clot, that means you should give fibrinogen to your patient. You have to give cryoprecipitate. Then if you found have patient with maximum lysis in 60 minutes more than 15%, maximum lysis in 16 minutes more than 15%, you have to do APTEM. You have to do APTEM. APTEM means it neutralize the effect of proteolytic enzyme. Once you neutralize the effect of proteolytic enzyme, if you have a normal coagulation, once you neutralize the clotting and proteolytic enzyme activity, your proteolysis is now become normal. It's less than 15%. Less than 15% of coagulation, here should be more than 15%. If it is less than 15%, you have to give tranexamic acid. It will help. If it is more than 15%, still you have to give sometime factor 30. Last one, if you think your patient receiving heparin, you have to run INTEM. Intrinsic pathway activators you can add, and you have to run intrinsic pathway activators. Then if you found to have normalized high protein time with intrinsic pathway, high protein time, you have to run HepTem. With that, if your patient sample is normalized, that means with the HepTem protein time normal, your patient having heparin effect, you have to give heparin neutralizing substance. You already know what is the name, protamine sulfate. Protamine sulfate. This is all regarding the coagulation. But recently they found some erratic proteolysis process when assessing the coagulation. Erratic proteolysis process. Here clot formation, and once clot form, the lysis is not static, the erratic proteolysis process. Who can answer for this one? Why it is due to erratic? Why erratic proteolysis? In patient with high platelet count, thrombocytosis patient, may have clot contraction and retraction rapidly because of larger amount of protein. Because of that, when you rotating it, sometimes clot may break down rapidly and clot contract rapidly. So because of that, this lysis process is not that much smooth. You can see this kind of picture in your proton if you are lucky enough.